Well, my name is Raffaele. Welcome. My task is that of doing what is called the pre-introduction. So the issue of dialogue will be a very important one. The issue of relationships, human relationships, will be the focus of our talk. So at the beginning, we will have a series of introductions in order to thank you for dedicating part of your time to these topics. So after the pre-introduction, the real introduction will be made by Paolo Cesari, president of Assogemme. Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon. Just a couple of lines that I'm going to read. I would like to welcome you and thank you. The first welcome is for Matteo Farsura. In his new role as director of the Fiera di Vicenza, has believed in our meetings. I would like to thank him because he decided to continue to support that relationship of trust and partnerships between us. That's a choice. And I'm very grateful for this choice because that means that for Vicenzoro, the turnover of people who participate is not the only important thing. What is important is also the strategic stance and the strategic opinions about the future. And then I would like to welcome Luca Iacomucci, who decided to accept our invitation and who decided to share his experience and his vision. I'd like to thank him because he decided to put aside his shyness and he decided to share with us the high-level creativity of the jewellery world. He will certainly surprise us, sharing with us the most authentic side of beautiful jewellery, jewellery made of contents, jewellery made of quality, jewellery which is rich of efforts and work, without which genius cannot be shown. And then I would like to welcome you, who decided to leave aside your activities for 1 hour in such an important fair at such a critical time. I'd like to thank you because you decided that sometimes listening to people is more important than speaking. You decided to come here and think about our future, our common future, thanks to the sensitivity, values of people like Luca Iacomucci, who in the end lives in our planet. Now, another couple of words about the topic of today. Just a couple of words, I promise. It is the issue of heritage. Well, this is something that is very important for me. I didn't have any heritage, but I now I didn't have any heritage because I come from a family of hotel keepers in Rimini. Entrepreneurs who, however, were very aware about the word courage, about the importance of involving other people and trust other people. And they knew how important it was to go beyond the expectations of customers. But they didn't know anything about jewelers. And that's why they share with me nothing. So I have this heritage because I have some heritage to share. I want to give continuity to our company for those who work there and for those who will work there, because the heritage of relations that we have made up deserves a future, because we all had our difficulties, which sometimes stopped us, but sorry, I'm almost finished. And then the issue of courage. That's very interesting. But before telling you my opinion, I'd like to know what Luca thinks about that. Thank you.
Grazie Paolo. Buongiorno a tutti.
Thank you, Paolo. Good afternoon. Thank you for your words. Well, my first 6 months as a director have been full of human support. I felt the support of the sector. So thank you so much for your kind words. I would like to welcome, on behalf of Italian Exhibition Group, I would like to thank Paolo and Azzurra for the enthusiasm and for the quality of their work, which made it possible to organize this important event. I was struck by the sentence that was mentioned. Before the past and the future, there is a moment, a second, which is called the present. And that reflects the time experienced by Vicenza Oro. We are looking back. We are celebrating 70 years of history made together with entrepreneurs, together with the city, entrepreneurs who are still with us today. And we're also building our future. I read words such as quality, skills, and by means of these words, we are building the new Vicenza Oro structure, even better, more beautiful, larger, and representing the leadership of Vicenza in the area of jewellery. So thank you. I wish you all a very interesting meeting. I'm sure it will be a very interesting meeting. Thank you.
Grazie mille Paolo. Ringrazio.
I'd like to thank Matteo and Paolo for this introduction. Now, let's start to talk about the topic of this meeting. Well, in this room, there are very different people. We have entrepreneurs, we have journalists of the Italian press, international press. We have representatives of institutions at the highest possible level, both Italian and international. And there are people who come from the world of education. We have students. So many different people. And all these people have something in common. They are immersed in change. Now, we can face change in 3 different ways. The first thing that we can do is to deny change. and say that change is something that ruins our life, and so hopefully we will not have any change. And the other possibility is resilience. Okay, there is change. I cannot change it. I cannot change the change. And so I try to take the best of it and I try to turn it to my advantage. And this is a strategy which is winning, more winning. So a better strategy than the first. And then there is a third possibility. So who said that I should necessarily react to change? Cannot I try to guide it? Instead of adapting to change, cannot I become the engine of change? Cannot I participate in this change and not suffer it passively? But to do so, we need to develop two specific skills. The skill of the frog and the attitude of osprey. So the frog says, I remain in my lake and I know everything about my place. I know the story of all the flies which fly over me. I know the currents of the lake and I know the rhythm of the plants. So I'm the world expert of this lake, and this enables me to know what's happening in my small lake, in my pond. And Matteo earlier on said that it is important to be astride between the past and the future, and the frog is perfectly on top of that. And then we have the hawk. The hawk is not an expert of ponds, but he sees everything from above, and he sees what happens in the pond and also around the pond. So the added value of the hawk is that he can have a large vision, and without that large vision, you cannot guide change. So it's important to be in the pond like the frog does, but it is equally important to look at the pond from above. And this is what we will try to do today. Today, thanks to the experience and the availability of Luca, we will try to look at the pond of jewellery, not only through the eyes of the frogs, but also with the eyes of the hawks, those who look around and who look at final customers, but also look at the past, at the heritage, and how can we turn heritage into future. But to do that, we have to look from above. So if I can give a suggestion to you, bring home one thing. So try to be frogs, but at the same time also try to be hawks. So look at the world from above, look at the connections. Well, I know it's difficult, it's uncomfortable, but it is extremely useful if you want to guide change and not be guided by change. And then a final point before giving the floor to Luca. Don't believe in what you think, because sometimes your thoughts about the pond are not in line with reality. So please question also what you say. Think about that and see whether it is in line with reality or whether it is some imagination, which is fine sometimes, but it's not useful to guide the future. Luca. Well, good afternoon. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Well, perhaps we can sit down. Well, I'm not so used to be in front of so many people. Sometimes I'm just sitting behind my desk with a pencil in the hand, so I hope I will not be too boring. Well, I have a first question for Luca. So, thinking about the metaphor of the pond, because one thing that the frog and the hawk learn very rapidly is that if they are outside their environment, they will not survive. So we need to look at the balance between our energy and the environment, because each human activity has an impact on the environment. I know that we have experts here about these ethical and environmental issues, but what is important is that whatever activities they carry out, well, those activities will take resources from the environment. And this is particularly important for the jewellery sector, because we use a lot of energy, and what we take from the environment is a noble matter. So if we want to have a balance in the system, the right balance, we should act so that what we give is more than what we take. And to do that, there are creatives. And in the world of jewellery, look at what can be done so that the result of this process is more valuable than what we take from nature. Well, the first thing that comes to my mind is something that has to do with our attitudes. First, we have to be humble, and then responsible, given the precious metals that we use. I work with incredible materials that nature offers us after thousands or even millions of years. And when you have those materials in your hands, well, I feel that my hands shake, and I feel that responsibility. And starting from these first phases, well, I try to be responsible, and I try to be aware that I am respectful of what nature gives us. Hopefully, we will be able to do something emotional and magic, and which remains over time. Well, let's try and record the key words: humbleness, humility, and it's important to start from the issue of humbleness and respect. And then the other issue has to do with giving a meaning to something, so to have the ability to take this extraordinary heritage and transform it in such a way that it is something important for all of us, and give it a future as well. Well, I'd like to go back to what Matteo said earlier about the balance between the past, the present, and the future. Well, we live in a world where we think that we are in an eternal present time. We ignore concerns about the future, but sometimes we should actually focus on these concerns. But if we had to imagine the present as a moment of connection between the past and the future, and if we had to do that in a creative way, well, What is the relationship between a creative act in the jewellery as compared to these three times, the past, the present, and the future? So very easy questions. Well, we can look at this question from different viewpoints. I would like to start from the title, The Suspended Time of the Creative Act. The creative act takes place in a suspended time. There is no real relationship with time. And it is a situation where everything is mixed and where we have contrast, fears, emotions, happiness, and all that ends up with the famous signs on the white paper. And then, going back to the issue of heritage, the past and the future, well, we creatives, but not only we, are called upon to feel our responsibility in using the heritage which was given to us, and then go beyond, go forward in order to create a future heritage. So the present is a time when you build the heritage of the future, you use the heritage from the past, but you have to add that famous extra brick to the various bricks that are already present. It's not enough to move a brick forward, backwards, to the left or to the right. Well, stop me if I'm too long. Anyway, the heritage, which is a huge value, because if you work with a company that has a specific heritage, well, that's something which is very important, but we shouldn't hide behind that heritage. I think that the responsibility of creatives is that of daring, of running risks, and be bold enough to do something which was not present and put an extra brick. Well, earlier on, you told me something beautiful. The heritage should not be put in the fridge. And doing exactly the same thing is a lack of respect for those who had the same intuition 100 years ago. But what is important is to take that spirit and continue with that spirit. Well, in my work, I've had many colleagues, and I saw different approaches to the issue of heritage, the issue of archives. Well, you can hide behind that. You can do something beautiful by moving that famous brick. But there should be a certain level of responsibility. Creatives should feel that responsibility, the responsibility of adding something more and taking up risks. And this will create the famous heritage of the future. So, continuity without copying things. Well, we should always be respectful of creatives, of course. Above all, when you have to look at heritage, types of heritage, which are very, very important. Now, I have another question for you. So, leaving aside creativity, I'd like to tell you that heritage can be seen in two different ways. Heritage is what we receive, but heritage is also what we give. So, it is a sort of a dot or a connection between the past and the future, but it is a connection which goes in two directions. So somehow inspiration from the past can be connected to the future, and then in the future it will become inspiration for another type of future. Now, this type of connection, do you think that it also has something to do with our human side? Well, very easy question. Well, I don't know if I can answer. Well, based on my personal experience and based on my approach that I have developed over the years, I can tell you that what is very important for me is emotion. I've come to a time when people ask me what is beautiful for you, what is not beautiful for you, and I cannot answer these questions. But there is something that I have understood. If there is a product which gives me emotions, and this happens, and I'm not talking about my products, well, I realize that I see in that product or behind that product, I see a human being. And I'm not referring to the artist, I'm referring to the sacrifice, to the fears, the anxiety, the actual manufacturing. So that is transmitted to me by means of emotions. So if I have to think of a human side, well, I visualize it in that way. The product which gives me that emotion, and as a consequence, I find the human being behind that object. I don't know if I'm being too abstract. No, beautiful. So it's a vision of creativity as a common gesture, as something which does not belong to single people, but which is generated and which accompanies also other people's work. So you spoke about those who actually manufacture the product and the efforts made by a line of people. Well, you know that often we have that image about a creative person who, by means of something magic, modifies reality. Well, that is not exactly what you mean. No, absolutely. Jewels are made by human beings, but please let me say that a sparkle should come out somewhere. So there is someone in front of that white paper, and there should be a sign on that white paper. So the creative is part of this fantastic mix. It's sort of a dad, the dad of a kid, and then the kid grows, improves, becomes more beautiful, also thanks to other dads. But let's say that the first dad is the one who puts some signs on the white paper. Well, that's your job. That's been your job for some decades. Yeah. I know that you are a very reserved person, but you know, here we have many students. And earlier on, you told us that in the creative process, there are some things that you take from the past and others that you don't take from the past. Well, I think that it is true also for your life choices. I don't know if you looked at Luca's profile on LinkedIn. Well, he's alive that it's a sort of a film. So can you tell us what are the doors that you had to shut? What are the elements that you had to drop or throw away? and the choices that you had to make, and then what are the doors that you opened. Well, sometimes courage can be confounded with unconsciousness or recklessness. Well, courage, of course, is important. You have to go forward. You have to create something bold, and you have to make bold choices. And I'm telling this to students who are here. Sometimes you have to go beyond what is being asked. And we, as creatives, have very long antennas. That belongs to our job, to our profession. So it is our responsibility to believe in that instinct. And when I speak about creative courage, I mean exactly that. Well, in my life, there were moments where I could be happy with what I had, but I didn't do that. And that helped me find my own road. So it was a strong sentiment that I felt inside. Well, just to make an example, I was already working as a designer for Hermes, and I will not tell you how I got there because it would take too much time. But at a certain point, I felt the need to do something different. I attended a master course at the Creative Academy. That was the first edition, because I had read in a magazine about this academy where they wanted to select 10 creatives, and the language was English, and I didn't speak a word of English. Anyway, I think I was good enough, and then Cartier hired me, and my contract with Hermes expired, and that was, of course, a risk. So that was a rather important step in my life, moment in my life. And then, when I was chosen by Hermes, I was already working as a designer. I was a product designer. And I discovered that my father had started to work for Hermes, to be a supplier of Hermes. And so I left my job. I remained unemployed, and for 2 years I decided to design a collection for Hermes. And I presented the prototypes to these people who came to my father to check the situation. And a few months later, the creative director called me, and he offered the job to me. Well, there is another fantastic episode. When you were 20 years old, you decided to go and study in the wood. Well, I was very young, and Arnaldo Pomodoro had set up a foundation in a small village in the Marche region. And again, he selected 10 talented boys. I was 19 years old, and my inspiration in summer was to do something else. But then I had to thank my father, who unfortunately is no longer with us. He was a very important person for me. He forced me to go, and I thank him for that because it was an incredible experience. For 5 months, I was really experiencing a fantastic situation with Joe Pomodoro, Dorfles, and other Italian important people. So Genius Loci is someone who was actually present in your career. And what helped you close some doors and open other doors? What is based on calculations, on instinct? Well, it was, I think it was instinct. I never felt a very complete, and I hope that what I could start could actually help me feel a complete person, a thorough person. So the choice to go to Paris was based on the fact that I had never gone abroad, and so I wanted to grow. So the notion of humbleness is good, of course, but at the same time, in a creative person, and in the case of jewelries, you had to continually feel that you want to grow, that you want to learn, that you want to be more and more complete. Yeah, you're right. In the world of jewelry, there is another important person, which is the customer. Well, I talked with Donatella some time ago, and we said that customers, of course, are very important in the creative process. I'd like to make an example. The Sixtine Chapel is called Sixtine Chapel because there was a Pope, Christo IV, who built it. Well, Sisto IV was a rather particular person. He had that idea of renovatio urbis, and he completely remade Rome, bridges, districts. He set up hospitals. And in this project, he also financed artists. So he was a great patron. But on the other side, this great patron probably had the most corrupt court in Europe. He had 15 nephews that he had to find a work for a job from, and so he financed the plot against the De Medici family in Florence. So he was a person that on the one side was a great patron, but on the other side he had a type of life which is a bit questionable. What does this have to do with what you're saying? Well, it is important because my question is, are there people who could be compared with Sisto IV? Because I know that you meet these customers because sometimes there are times when you have a direct relationship. No. There are no such moments. But what I want to ask you is, well, you have customers who are extremely powerful. And what do creatives do? Do you try to adapt to the power of the customers, or do you take up a sort of educational role, although it is not the right word to use? So do you also propose new models, or do you accept what they tell you? Because in that case, you're not perhaps creating future heritage. So Well, my patrons, today's patrons, well, I see them and I know that they are the great maisons for which I have worked in the past. And I have to say that in these past 25 years, the number of these maisons has increased. And that's good, in my opinion, because I think that they gave a boost to the world of top-level jewellery, because when there is competition, that competition is a way to boost a sector. Now, to answer your question, clearly these patrons, these clients, these customers that I meet during events when we present our collections, well, I do not want to think of those clients. I try to make a product in the best possible way, and this is my method. Everybody has his own method. Well, of course, I think of my customer. I respect the heritage, and so I try to do things in the best possible way, and I try to create a product that can resist in time, because the objective is to make a product which has no time, because my idea is that of creating emotions and hope. I try to do that. Well, that's a very courageous choice. Can we say that? Yes. Yes, and it also has to do with the responsibility. So that's the responsibility that I feel. And whether the object is a normal jewellery object or high jewellery object, nevertheless, there is this responsibility. So, if we want to create future heritage, there are some key words: respect, responsibility, instinct, courage. And there is a fifth word that we can add. Well, recently I traveled to Mongolia, and they believe in a philosophy which is based on 3 words, which are harmony, balance, and respect. So if a product is well done and well manufactured, I think that it contains these 3 elements. Thank you. I hope I didn't bore you. Thank you.
E quindi su
So, harmony, balance, and respect. Thank you for being with us. Thank you.
Poi mi devi raccontare il viaggio in Mongolia.